Welcome. We're glad to see you. Glad to have you here with us. Welcome back if you've been among those who have been following us for a while. Glad to have you here too. Welcome to our Sunday service for February 14th, but you can certainly watch it at any time and participate in it at any time. So, please join me in our opening prayer. We are gathered here today in your name, O Holy One, Spirit of all life, all goodness, all creativity, all compassion. We gather in your name to share in your qualities, the things that you teach us, the ways you want us to be. Thank you for calling us to be gathered in here as your family, as one people bound together in your love. Amen. Announcements for today. Well, my standard announcements concern: 1, communion. Our communion is totally open. If you wish to participate when it comes time, when we share here at the table, you can put us on hold here for a minute, go get a piece of bread or a cracker or something to drink, and come back again, and then when it's time, we will all partake together. The other thing is my standard announcement that at the end of this video, there's an information page should you wish to contact us or simply learn more about who we are. This is the Church of the Open Door in Ukiah. That's who we call ourselves, who we chose to name ourselves. We are a Disciples of Christ Church, and you can find all that out by looking at that information page. Should you wish to contact us for any reason, to ask for prayers or anything else, you can find that information there as well. And then a simple reminder that this coming Wednesday, the 17th of February, is Ash Wednesday, when we will be entering into the season of Lent. And so for the next few weeks, we will be immersed in our Lenten journey to Easter. So please join me now in the prayers of the people. Gathered here as we are in your name, we ask you, Lord, to bless our worship. Scattered as our lives may be, still our hearts gather here as one, held in the grace and the peace of your love. Hear the prayers that we bring to share today. We begin first with thanks for the development of the vaccines and for their distribution beginning to go out all over the country and all over the world, actually. We give you thanks for the people who developed them and all those who've worked to bring them to us, and thanks especially for the hope that they bring us, that this plague may one day be under control. We ask for a peaceful resolution to our political turmoil here in this country, for all those things that divide us so sharply, that we may remember that we are one people in your name. We ask for patience for all those who are still waiting for their vaccines. We ask for comfort and peace for all those who are living in fear right now because they're so frightened of the illness and they have not yet had access to the vaccines. We ask that you give continual strength and courage to all those frontline workers who continue to try with everything they have in them to keep the rest of us healthy and alive. and for all those struggling with economic collapse, with the loss of employment, with just all the terrible struggles that are upon us right now, so many of us. And in that same vein, we also give you thanks for the great generosity that has burst forth in our peoples here. When the needs were seen, so many private citizens have simply stepped up to help, to do the right thing. When we look around us, we can see your love and your grace among us all the time, and we give you thanks. And so, God of love, be more and more in us today, that we may be more and more in you. Thank you for hearing our prayers, and for all those prayers that we did not speak aloud. Thank you. Amen. Our reading for today comes from the Gospel of John, from the 15th chapter. And instead of being one continuous story, I have instead chosen some separated sentences all on the same theme, which I hope will be made clear as I speak further. So John 15, beginning with verses 9 and 10. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. And then verse 12. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. And finally, verses 16 and 17. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. Today is Valentine's Day. That's why I chose to begin here with these words from Jesus on the subject of love. Valentine's Day is not on the lectionary calendar, of course, but it is a day that's almost impossible to ignore because of all the media and commercial attention that's paid to it. But this year, because it lands right next to Ash Wednesday and the beginning of Lent, it had me thinking about love and Lent and how those two intersect. The story that we're going to be reliving throughout Lent is not about the hearts and flowers kind of love, not the romantic love of a Hallmark movie, but a love that is much deeper, more earth-shattering, more life-changing, the love of God. So much that passes for Christian thinking in the media, at least these days, appears to have completely lost the message when it comes to love. What we seem to get instead is a perversion of what Christian love should be. A love that preaches hell and damnation, a love that closes doors and shuts people out, that demands allegiance to a particular dogma, and one that too often overtly preaches hatred. Hatred against God's other children. And I do say other in quotes here because it is always the other who is the recipient of these vengeful, exclusionary, perverted form of Christianity. Unfortunately, it is this distorted version of Jesus' love that shouts the loudest and thus gets the more attention right now, at least in our history, making it all the more necessary that the rest of us seek for the actual love of Jesus so that we, in turn, can share that love with the rest of the world around us. Love should not ever be a cage that locks us into a single option. God's love is, like everything else that comes from God, open-handed. We can take it or we can leave it. God offers. The taking or the leaving is in our hands. In his book, Love Wins, author Rob Bell puts it this way: love demands freedom. It always has, and it always will. We are free to resist, reject, and rebel against God's ways for us. We can, if we so choose, have all the hell we want. The choice is always ours. We can choose the world's hatred, or we can choose to accept and share God's love. Now, we will be staying in the lectionary readings this Lent, but I plan to spend our time while they're looking for love, God's kind, in each of these readings. In some, it will be fairly obvious, but in others, I suspect it might be harder to find. I want to find what Jesus' journey to the cross has to teach us about living and acting with love. The easy kind, and especially the hard kind. The kind that disturbs us, that hurts us, and the kind we give anyway. Now, blogger-speaker John Pavlovitz wrote in his blog, Things That Need to Be Said. This is back in September of 2015 in a piece titled, I Want to Do Love Right. My agenda now is fairly simple. I want my presence on the planet to result in less pain, less inequality, less poverty, less suffering, less damage for those sharing it with me. I want the sum total of my efforts to yield more compassion, more decency, more laughter, more justice, and more goodness than before I showed up. That sounds like love to me. This is the love I believe we'll find as we travel through this Lent with Jesus. So today, on this Valentine's Day, on this day that the secular world tells us is all about love, may we gather and agree to commit to continue seeking out and admitting to our wrongs so that we can correct them. And because we choose to live in the spirit of God's all-encompassing love, today, tomorrow, and always. Amen. It is love that brings us to this table. It is love that prepared this table and called us to it in the first place. This is the kind of love that is hard for us even to understand. At times, at any rate. As Jesus was preparing to come to the end of his earthly life, his life as a human walking and living among us, as one of us, in order to say goodbye one more time, in order to prepare those who followed him and who walked with him as much as he could for his leaving them, in order to give them what they needed to carry on without his everyday presence. His focus was on them, even though he was well aware of where the movement of the times was leading him, which was into conflict with the temple, into conflict with the Romans, and to death eventually. Even though that was where he was, his thoughts were with us, with the followers then and those of us who have followed ever since. And knowing what it would feel like for us to feel left behind and abandoned, he took bread at this meal where he had gathered his followers to eat with him one last time. And he took the bread and he offered it up to the one he called Father. And then he broke it. And then he said to them, "This is my body given for you." Did they understand that? Most likely not. But they remembered the words. And in later times, looking back on that period, they understood then that Jesus was giving himself for them. And at that meal, he took the cup and he offered it again to the one he called Father, and he blessed it. And then he said, "This cup is my life poured out for you, given for you." And again, I suspect they did not understand then. It was only after everything was all over with and in the days and weeks and months afterwards that they could begin to see what he meant when he said and did these things. When they could see the love that moved him to do this. And he said to them, "Take this bread and eat it, and take this cup and drink from it. And whenever you do this, remember me. Whenever you share this together, know that I am with you and in you, and I have never left you." I leave you my words, I leave you my teachings, I leave you my heart, I leave you my spirit. I am with you, now and always. And so down through the ages we remember, and we take and we eat the bread and we drink from the cup. And we know that we are never alone. And I invite you to join me now if you have your own bread and or whatever and your own cup. Please share with me. Carry this gift, this love with you as you go out into the coming week and share it with all that you meet. And remember, And I ask you now to join me, if you will, in the Lord's Prayer. The best known of our prayers, the most commonly spread around, so that even people who have little contact with church may well know this prayer. Use whatever form, whatever words are the most comfortable for you, the ones that are the ones you've used all your life or ones you've learned only recently. Whatever you are the most comfortable with. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever, forever. Amen. Go in the peace and the love of Christ, and may your week be blessed. Amen.